Hello, welcome to this session. I'm Dr. Káren North from St Mary's University and delighted to be presenting a paper on transforming transmission, Catholic young people and young adults in a COVID-changed world. Sharing my screen. The COVID-19 outbreak and public health responses to it have changed our world. Daily life has changed so significantly. It's really hard to imagine what life was like before Zoom, where public transport was safer than the car and homeschooling was not a stark reality for many. The daily challenges of the new normal are difficult enough, but as we are painfully aware, COVID-19 has impacted profoundly on spiritual as well as temporal realities. The term practicing Catholic is suddenly up for review, as mass attendance on Sundays and holy days has gone from being physically forbidden and virtually encouraged to something that is now possible but restricted. Even for those of us seasoned in the faith, this is a strange time. So one can only imagine what it's like for Catholic young people and young adults. In this paper, I'm going to draw on my own research and that of others to reflect on some of the pastoral challenges faced by parishes in reaching out to Catholic young people and to highlight some examples of best practice that might help to map the road ahead. So to contextualise a little, it would be fair to say, even before the pandemic, those concerned with the future of the Church will be aware of the fact that the Christian faith, as Buber maintains, is no longer being passed on in an unrestricted way. We live in what Johann Baptist Merz, Buber and others have identified as an era of interruption. Whilst this does present an opportunity for reimagining the transmission of faith, it has left a lot of young people ecclesiologically adrift in what Michael Paul Gallagher vividly described as an undramatic limbo of non-belonging. My research into the lapsation of Catholic young people, and more recently into the successful transmission of the faith for Catholic young adults, provides a basis for some of my thoughts. In my infill research, some key findings revealed that Catholic young people were not actively practicing their faith because they didn't feel their spiritual needs were being met or that they belonged. More recently, my doctoral research indicates that Catholic young adults who are super involved, core, highly engaged, fundamentally sought places in the Church where they experienced life. Interestingly, this on the whole was not necessarily connected with their parish or even a particular style of prayer. More important to them was the context of belonging and the opportunity to be accompanied or mentored. For many, the significant moment might be a retreat, a prayer meeting, a chaplaincy social, or a pilgrimage. None of this was contradictory to sacramental life. Indeed, the young adults I interviewed and surveyed were precisely seeking Eucharistic as well as social belonging. And they valued being part of the wider Church on the one hand, particularly in large gatherings such as World Youth Day, where they were surrounded by significant numbers of young people, and where they experienced a felt glimpse of the communion of saints and a sense of intense belonging. Most people today do not join, stay, or leave a church because of belief or doctrine, but rather for a sense of belonging and community. Young people, and arguably all people, want to feel that they belong, that people know their name, that their presence matters. They need to feel welcome in their own church. To this end, ecclesial leaders would be wise to maximise opportunities for hospitality and mentoring to enable young adults to make a choice for faith as church and exercise leadership today rather than in some postponed tomorrow. This is particularly critical at a time when we are only just beginning to understand the ways which COVID-19 is forcing our communities to evolve differently from the church of our shared yesterdays. A research project called Coronavirus Church in You, sponsored by Catholic Voices, conducted by Francis Village and Davis, has begun to profile the main features of the current situation in UK churches. The initial survey range is impressive, collating over 2,500 responses. A follow-up survey has also taken place with findings to be published shortly. In terms of this report and young people, or those under the age of 50 as categorised in their survey, the initial findings indicate that for many young people, stress levels are high and that they feel more distance from others and less close to God than older people. Yet in fairness to them and all who participated in this survey, their recent experience of church has varied greatly in terms of connectedness and intensity. So what are we to make of all this? And more to the point, what is the church pastoral to make of it? Although we should be mindful that we're still in the first phase of adjustment, I think we can already begin to see some kind of faith flourishing and pastoral dexterity that is noteworthy. In terms of virtual material and presence, COVID-19 is forcing clergy, chaplains, youth workers, and church creative to populate that very platform that most young people are wedded to. To that end, we are witnessing some remarkable initiatives, worldwide calls to prayer orchestrated by the Pope, and global internet endeavours of Bishop Barron's Word on Fire. Closer to home, SimFed, Catholic Youth Ministry Federation in England and Wales, have hosted a series of online talks, The God Who Speaks in the Digital World, a field hospital for youth ministry, synodality, a key for evangelisation of young people. Notable work's also taken place in the Diocese of Southwark and Nottingham. In Nottingham, they've developed extraordinary resources based on the Ordo for schools and parishes since lockdown began. This is backed up by an evocatively biblical travelling tent staffed by the youth service, which tours the schools of the diocese. The Million Minutes programme, curated by Danny Curtin, has also organised a series of discussions for young people, taking seriously accompaniment and mental health issues with young people. Likewise, 7 miles away from Jerusalem is an initiative by the Diocese of Derry, with a website designed to acknowledge the need to engage with those who feel on the margins of their faith. Although these initiatives have some way to go to match the kind of reach the anthropologist Jordan Peterson has achieved for his lecture on Genesis, 2 hours, 2 million views, the steps towards internet success have to begin somewhere. I'm currently working on some new research, thinking about this whole area of young people and faith. To this end, in the last few weeks, I've conducted a brief survey with a mix of people who either volunteer or work with young people. For example, catechists, school chaplains, parish workers, deacons, parents. And respondents were asked what their experience has been over the last 18 months, what the experience has been for the young people they work with. And they're also asked to outline what had worked and what had been less helpful. Then comes the million-dollar question. If they were in charge, what would they do to encourage young people to return, become active, and develop their faith? Their experience in lockdown indicated a mixed response, from people feeling distanced and missing their church community, to being furious with the church and feeling completely abandoned. On the other hand, others welcomed the brevity of online masses and the opportunity to shop around, going to more engaging services where they felt inspired. So what worked? Again, there was a mixed response, but most welcomed the convenience of being able to go online and avail of a whole wealth of spiritual support and activity, either not previously available or previously on their radar, such as online talks, prayers, masses, retreats. For those parishes that hit the ground running, and arguably it's those parishes that have seen more people return to them, online confirmation classes seemed to work well, although youth groups that were primarily social were less successful. Initiatives such as Faith in Action and the John Paul II Awards were also well received as they provided a natural base of young people and a clear reason to accompany them. Less positive was that youth workers observed a whole lot of young people have become isolated and disincentivized from their faith and have not engaged well with online masses. An oversaturation of the online life has shortened attention spans, and many have just got out of the habit of being involved. So it's interesting to me that whilst a lot of parishes that have embraced online have done so via YouTube or Facebook, whereas most people are likely to use Instagram or TikTok. So the million-dollar question, what would you do to encourage young people in their faith? Although it was acknowledged that there was a lot of limitation to the virtual world, most people wanted to keep some kind of hybrid church available. There was a consensus that it would be imperative to personally invite young people back to church, starting with social and welcoming events and contacting them primarily through school if necessary. First steps would also include asking people what they wanted and actively listen to their responses. A parish worker reflects, ask them about their identity, worries and hopes, and how the church can support these. Another respondent makes a really valid point. Whilst we don't know what the new normal will be, and some practices have clearly changed, for example, communion under one kind, I don't think they should become the new normal without consultation with parishioners. Next steps would include involving young people in specific ministries in parish life, asking the young people what they could build back better. Most responses cited the importance of building relationships with the church community and with Christ. Overall, there was a sense of let's grasp this moment and use it to reevaluate exactly how we welcome people and what our intrinsic evangelistic mission and ministry in the community is. A parent of 4 teenage children, young people, I think makes a really, really valid observation here. She said, go out there and be present, think outside the box, have outside services if needs be and sing, have tea and coffee after mass and call it for cafe if you must, have day trips, focus on the youth and the little ones who are no longer going to have mass in their living memory. And I think this is really good. She says, don't get caught up in it's too hard to do message. Saving a teenager's soul is worth absolutely everything that we can throw at it. So to conclude, one thing I think we can be certain about is that things will never go back to how they were. I personally think it would be a huge mistake to try and even attempt this. Whilst time will tell if the decline in mass attendance will continue in a similar way in the West or at an accelerated rate, I do think that there is some occasion for hope. As the Catholic Voices survey report suggests, this may be an opportunity for the Church to evaluate, to take stock, or as Pope Francis puts it, to be more outward facing. I think Káren's voice was somewhat prophetic when he predicted that the Church would be smaller, more focused, but not ghettoized. He long ago suggested the usual preaching from the pulpit, which was only aimed at a few, was no longer adequate in spreading the Christian message. And although he didn't live to see it, perhaps his prophetic soul was intuiting the arrival of the internet age. By nature of the medium, communal prayer organised online is one step removed from physical immediacy, but it may come to be seen as providential. An individual browsing their way into the church might engage in a manner that falls short of our liturgical ideal, but if we are honest, it is not a guarantee, even when we ourselves are present. For most Catholics, Mass is normally one size fits all, with a slight exception of different styles of music or perhaps a more family-friendly liturgy. This change in the wineskin may ultimately lead to the wine becoming more freely available. It may alleviate the shortage of priests, open up ministries and charisms in ways that we hadn't even thought of.